The last place I wanted to be was Frostnipistan.
This one's wife. Refund? I don't think so. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. This channel is about narcissism and psychopathy. It covers all aspects of it, with a particular emphasis on explaining the behaviour of famous narcissists, famous empaths, people who are of celebrity, politicians, sports people, and so on and so forth, alongside the existing work that has been built up over a number of years. It's a solid and instructive collection. I have a sister channel, a smaller, embryonic channel, called Narcissism and Psychopathy with H.G. Tudor, where a purer form of narcissism and psychopathy is detailed and discussed. I would encourage you very much to subscribe to that channel so that you can receive both sets of information. As you know, what I regularly do is use news information, be it interviews, actual footage, written interviews, reportage about the behaviours of famous and infamous, and sometimes not famous at all, individuals to show various aspects of narcissism and also to help you understand why is that person behaving that way. Because as I've explained on many occasions, when you understand that somebody is a narcissist and why they do as they do because they're driven by their narcissism, it really does help you understand much of the behaviour of certain people in the world. And therefore, I will utilise information from alternative sources and explain what's going on vis-à-vis the narcissism. And I'm going to do so again. Michelle from Royal Daily Tea, who I've spoken with in the past as part of my In Conversation series and If I Ruled the World series and 10 Commandments of This One's Wife series, deemed it appropriate to make a purchase or attempt to make a purchase of This One's Wife's apricot jam. And she has relayed on her channel what has gone on with regard to the apricot jam. And it bears me highlighting what has occurred and explaining what's actually going on vis-à-vis the narcissism of This One's Wife. So first of all, a quick recap of what Michelle has experienced. She ordered the apricot jam, and she ordered it in the keepsake packaging. And she received a confirmation on June the 20th that the product was on its way. So she paid $14 for the jam, $7 for the shipping, and there were taxes also. So she forked out $22.74. And the order was confirmed as being on its way on June the 24th. Don't know what Michelle was planning to spread the apricot jam on. Certainly, I dare say she would have utilised it for the purposes of her channel. But then she explained that on June the 30th, she received an email explaining that as a consequence of high demand, the order could not be fulfilled. Boo. And therefore, she would have a refund by the end of the week. And at some future point, they would send a spread, free of charge. Okay. So first of all, she orders something that's told is on its way, but then can't be fulfilled, which isn't very good customer relations, is it? And I explained previously about the future faking that has gone on in relation to this refund situation and the provision of future apricot jam. What is interesting is that if you happen to go on as ever, the other products, the flour sprinkles and the honey and such like, are all described as either coming soon or sold out. The apricot spread isn't listed, which tends to suggest that it was a one-off and isn't going to return. Therefore, it seems rather strange to suggest we will be sending you the spread in the future, free of charge, when in actual fact it doesn't look like it's going to reappear. But perhaps that might change. Accordingly, you have poor customer relations to begin with by telling somebody your order on its way, oh, actually, no, we can't fulfill it, but we've taken your money, we'll refund you by the end of the week, and we will send you some spread in the future. But in terms of the refund, what did Michelle get? Well, she explained that she was only refunded $15.16. So over $7 was retained, which in effect is the shipping charge and the taxes that were added to the original shipping price. Now, is it the case that they're then keeping this shipping charge to cover the later mailing out of the apricot spread? And therefore, if that's the case, the suggestion that they're going to send her the spread free of charge isn't true, because she's already paid for it. Therefore, that isn't accurate. And also, why don't they just refund the whole amount, because after all, they couldn't fulfill it, and then send her, as a gesture of goodwill, at their cost, the spread, and cover the cost of doing so? Or, simplest, we haven't got it available, we're terribly sorry, here's a refund, and then not promise the provision of something at some undefined time. The fact that it's been oversold to begin with demonstrates a highly questionable approach to business. After all, you must know how much product you've got before you can commit to telling somebody, I'm sending it you. And therefore, that is questionable business practice. The suggestion that you're going to be sent something in the future which doesn't appear actually to be available at all is questionable. And then you have the fact that she hasn't been given anything, and $7 of Michelle's money has been kept. Now, it's not a huge amount, and I dare say Michelle isn't going to get terribly upset about that. But it does raise an interesting aspect of the business practice of this one's wife, in that you can't have the product and I've kept some of your money. Now, you might immediately think, is this some kind of scam, whereby this is how she's going to make the money, to hold onto it, to use that money to finance the provision of stock elsewhere? Well, it's a possibility, but I can't imagine that there have been that many orders of the jam to begin with. I would imagine that if there were 100 jars of this jam, even that would be on the rather large side. So if there have been 100 orders placed that haven't been fulfilled, that means that this one's wife's only holding on to $700. If 1,000 orders, then it's $7,000, which in the scheme of somebody who wants to be a billionaire, it's an absolute speck of dust, isn't it? Now, it could be, of course, that the dim-wittedness of this one's wife is that she engages in this behaviour because, after all, it's money. I personally don't think that she has decided that she's going to keep the money. A narcissist might do so because of their lack of boundary recognition as a consequence of asset appropriation and their absence of emotional empathy. But the amounts involved, she would have had to have had hundreds of thousands, nay, millions of unfulfilled orders to have a sum of money that it was worth keeping. And we know she won't have received that because it's not that popular a product. And therefore, whilst it's a possibility that a narcissist would keep money, I think in actual fact that the logistical issues that have arisen aren't actually caused by her. As we know, she's contracted out the shipping aspect of this to Snow Commerce. In fact, you've got to really wonder, what is it that this one's wife actually does in relation to this brand? She doesn't make any of the products, other people do. She doesn't fulfill or unfulfill the orders. That's Snow Commerce that handles it. There's no real proper advertising of it beyond her Instagram channel. I suppose the only thing she does is stay awake at night fretting over the packaging, which we all know is a load of nonsense. So I don't think that she has personally overseen the retention of these funds. I think this issue is as a consequence of the incompetence of the dropship company, who don't have a particularly good reputation to begin with. But the experience of Michelle from Royal Daily Tea, which is likely to have been replicated by other people, is certainly not a good look for this one's wife. After all, we all know that her aim with this Potemkin business is to get it to flash its ankles so that somebody comes along and goes, "Ooh, cool, blimey, governor, I don't half fancy a bit of as ever. Here, have $100 million and make it mine." She's trying to put it in the shop window to encourage somebody to purchase it. And if you have a situation whereby, first of all, people are not getting their product, and people are told they're getting their product, but then it doesn't arrive, and then people are only getting partial refunds and are being promised that they're going to receive something free of charge, where actually it's not going to be the case because you have already paid for the shipping, all of that is a stain on the already piss-poor reputation of As Ever. Naturally, for a narcissist, she wouldn't give a shit because, after all, she's always right and you are all wrong, that you're just nasty, and that any complaints just means that you're a bigoted, hated racist. The fact is, it'll be the dropship company that have buggered this up, but the reputational damage remains for this one's wife, but she will just blame them and say, hey, nothing to do with me, whereas in actual fact, she ought to be doing her level best to correct these situations, that she should be ensuring that the dropship company are told full refunds, then send out the apricot jam PDQ and don't charge anybody for that jam nor the shipping. Or, as I mentioned earlier on, at the bare minimum, explain, terribly sorry, we've not been able to fulfill the order, here's your money back in total. It's another calamitous aspect of this one's wife's business, in inverted commas, and demonstrates that she hasn't got a clue. And for all of her protestations about being a female founder, what she knows about business is basically the square root of fuck all. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.